The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's Psych Central webinar series. We have a great presentation lined up for you, but before we get started, some housekeeping items. We cannot see or hear you, so please do not talk to the computer as it won't help. But if you do have questions, you can type the questions into the chat or questions bar. We won't answer the questions until the end when I will come back on and moderate them. However, you can enter the questions at any point and they will not interrupt the presenter. And without further ado, I hand it over to our wonderful presenter. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so a few housekeeping rules here. I'm in South America right now, and they are working on the house. So if you hear a saw, I do deeply apologize, but I don't think it should be too bad. So why don't we start, and I named this What You Need to Know About Narcissists. Okay, so let's get some background. Narcissus, he fell in love with his own reflection, as you probably have heard, in the waters of a spring, and pined away or killed himself, and the flower that bears his name sprang up where he died. And he was distinguished for his beauty, and the story may have derived from the ancient Greek superstition that it was unlucky or even fatal to see one's own reflection. Now, in Freudian psychiatry and psychoanalysis, the term narcissism denotes an excessive degree of self-esteem or self-involvement, a condition that is usually a form of emotional immaturity. So, narcissistic personality disorder. It's a cluster B personality disorder, and the reason it's phrased that way is because in our Bible, those of us in the mental health profession, psychologists, counselors, psychiatrists, we use our Bible, the DSM, now it's DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So it's filed under a cluster B personality disorder, defined as comprising a pervasive pattern of grandiosity and fantasy or behavior, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. It begins by early adulthood, which is when, like, the schizophrenia manifests itself. And a lot of disorders manifest themselves in late teens or late 20s. Now, yes, there are children who have depression and so on, but we're just talking about adults right now. And presents in a variety of contexts, as indicated by the presence of at least 5 of the following criteria. So, a grandiose sense of self-importance, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions, a need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitive behavior, a lack of empathy, envy of others, or a belief that others are envious of him or her, a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. So it's 5 of those that they have to meet pervasively. And what I described to you before was, let's see if I can go before. Nope. I wonder how I can do this. No. Gabe?
I believe if you hit your arrow buttons, you'll move backwards and forwards.
Oh, great, thanks.
My pleasure.
All right. Okay. So these we can all feel that way. We can all not be as empathic as we'd like. We can all feel envy. We can be arrogant. We can feel that we're special and unique. We can dream of or manifest success, power, brilliance. We, feel sometimes that we're a little egotistical. These are on an extreme continuum, just so that you know. Now, the myths are that narcissists have low self-esteem. They love themselves excessively. They love only themselves. They're loud and or braggarts. They're always successful. They don't realize they're narcissists. And the other myth is that they can be treated. And I put an asterisk there so that we can talk about that. Now, narcissists think quite highly of themselves, actually, to a false extreme. And narcissists don't really love themselves. They're actually driven by shame. It's the idealized image of themselves that they embody and admire. But deep down, they feel the gap between the facade they show the world and their true self. And they actually loathe themselves, but they're not in touch with really any of their feelings. So that is all in buried deep down or in their subconscious. They only love others insofar as their goals are met. And so long as they are being admired and catered to and, being adored, because they lack that so very badly. They can also be very shy. They can be the person sitting, quietly somewhere and they're plotting some revenge. They don't have to be the mustache twirling in loud suits or, saying, come here and raising their eyebrows in a very menacing manner. That's TV and movies. They do not always have the fortitude for follow through. So while they can be very successful at the beginning, and they work hard and more likely to get promoted, but it's the short term, because in the long term, they don't like paying their dues. So it's going to be difficult for them to truly climb the ladder. There needs to be other traits prominent in their personality. Research shows that most know that they are narcissists, but pointing it out is ineffective. You can tell them, you're a narcissist, and they might take it as a badge of honor. They really don't, they're not caring what you think, but you're not going to know that. They're difficult to treat because self-reflection is not their forte. Now, if you have the rare narcissist who is going to delve deep into their feelings, and they are going to face their shame, and they're going to be humbled, and they stick with it, they can be treated. But most are not going to be doing that, and they will resent the therapist, and they will feel that self-examination is a buzzkill, and they will feel exploited, and they will turn it around to you, the therapist or the helper. So what do we have? The relationships revolve around them. They experience their mates as extensions of themselves. Most narcissists are perfectionists. Nothing others do is right or appreciated. Their partners are expected to meet their endless needs when needed. and they need their partners for admiration, love, or purchases, and are dismissed when not. It's not something that is mutual. It'll look like that at the beginning, and we're going to talk about that, but it's not. Narcissists don't like to hear no and often expect others to know their needs without having to ask. And how do they do that? It's by conditioning. It's behavior modification. They don't know that it is, but they know how to manipulate. Now, there's good manipulation, as a matter of fact, when it's for good, but like in therapy, you know, moving the patient towards what, you know, their goal, asking them to consider this or that, or have you thought that maybe in this situation that you're describing, this, you know, thus could be happening. But they will condition you by their absence of behavior or attentiveness so that you are more attentive to them, if that makes sense. They will manipulate to get their way and punish or make partners feel guilty for turning them down. Now, you're not going to know that because it will be done in such a subtle way, very subtle. And we'll get to that. Trying to please the narcissist is thankless. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit. So if you think that this person who is not your best match is hurting you psychologically, it could be physically too, but let's talk psychological, and you're not comfortable and you feel like you're walking on eggshells and you're thinking, well, you know, they're just, they told me about their tough childhood and this, that, and the other. And, you know, no, I can, it's okay. I mean, he is so good to his mother, or he's so good to his whatever. Probably they've told you that. You didn't see it because they're not good to anybody except themselves. Okay, causes of narcissism. Environment, parent-child relationships. The deprivation of real nurturing and lack of boundaries makes narcissists dependent on others to feed their insatiable need for validation, and can only love themselves as a reflection in the eyes of others. Now, even though it's not known truly what the causes of narcissistic personality disorders are, because you can't ethically do a craniotomy and start poking around in somebody's brain, or take slices and put them back. It's just not possible. It's only post-mortem where you can, you know, they have found, research has found a malformation in the brains of sociopaths and altered connections in schizophrenic brains, etc. So you can't really, you know, we can speculate with some certainty because of research, but it's also subjective. And it's complex. So mismatches in parent-child relationships with either excessive adoration or excessive criticism that is poorly attuned to the child's experience can be a cause in the environment. It can be genetics, inherited characteristics. We're all made from the person who fathered and mothered us or gave birth to us. And it can be neurobiology, the connection between the brain and behavior and thinking. So those are our risk factors. Factoids. Narcissistic personality disorder affects more males than females, and it often begins in the teens or early adulthood. And signs of narcissism are a little more nuanced. And it's possible, like I said, to have some traits of narcissism without having the full-blown clinically diagnosed NPD, which I'm going to shorten it to. Now, kids may show, or children may show traits of narcissism, but this may simply be typical of their age, and it doesn't mean that they will go on to develop this disorder. And like I said, they're not always as obvious as media depictions would have you believe. The time when you are going to have a problem is if it starts to have a serious negative impact on everyday life and relationships. And that you can take with, you can look at depression, anxiety, drinking, gambling. If anything disrupts, begins to disrupt, or anyone begins to disrupt your daily activities of hygiene, going to work, relating to your friends and family that you want to relate to, and your daily, washing yourself and the keeping your apartment uncluttered at least, and washing clothes, etc., your daily life activities, then that is when whatever it is, a person or depression, anxiety, drinking, gambling, etc., becomes a problem. So I thought to illustrate this, I would take from Shahida Arabi, who's a best-selling author, and she wrote this on Psych Central, 12 of the most common lies sociopaths and narcissists tell, translated into truth. So the first one is, you're crazy. You have mental health issues. You need help. And this is in the course of the relationship you might and probably will hear. And what they're really saying is you're not the pathological one here. You're just catching on to who I really am behind the mask and attempting to hold me accountable for my questionable behavior. I'd rather you question your own sanity so you believe that the problem is really you. So long as you believe you're the one who needs help, I'll never have to take responsibility for changing my own disordered ways. The next one is the infamous, you're just jealous, you're just insecure and jealous. And it's what they're really saying is, I enjoy planting seeds of insecurity and doubt in your mind about your attractiveness, competence, personality. If you dare to question my numerous flirtations, affairs, and inappropriate interactions, I'll be sure to put you back in your place, making you fear losing me. So they're going to project it back to you. The problem, as I'll convince you, is that my deceptive behavior, it's your inability to remain confident while I perpetually put you down and eventually cast you aside for the next best thing. And remember that manufacturing love triangles are a narcissist's forte. They love for somebody to be competing for their for them. And also remember that someone who has something to hide, to someone who has something to hide, everything will feel like an interrogation. Narcissists will often lash out in narcissistic rage, stonewalling, and excessive defensiveness when confronted with evidence of their betrayals. So they will probably tell you that, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, you're fine, it's fine, you're just jealous and insecure. And this is also making you doubt what you see, which is called gaslighting, and we'll get to that. You're too sensitive, you're overreacting. What they're saying is, it's not that you're too sensitive, but rather that I am insensitive, callous, and unempathic. I do not care about your emotions unless they serve me in some way. Your negative reactions provide me stimulation and pleasure, so please do keep going. It's like a child. It's reinforcing negative behavior. If they are doing something and you pay attention to them every time they do something wrong, they will keep doing it because it's entertaining. They love to see you upset. If you only pay attention to them, providing that they're safe, when they do something good, then you're going to reinforce positive behavior. This is also gaslighting, because you are likely to ask yourself, am I too insensitive? A dozen times a day. It was just a joke. You have no sense of humor. What they're really saying is, I love disguising my abusive behavior as just jokes. I like calling you names, putting you down, and then claiming you're the one who lacks the sense of humor to appreciate my depraved wit. Making you feel defective allows me to say and do whatever I wish, all with a smile and a derisive laugh. The disguising cruel remarks, off-color comments, and put down as just jokes is a popular verbal abuse tactic. This tactic is very different from playful teasing, which takes a certain amount of rapport, trust, and mutual enjoyment. Just jokes, or I'm just joking, is also used to test boundaries early on in an abusive relationship. What you may have rationalized as a tone-deaf or off-color comment in the beginning can escalate into psychological violence quite quickly in the hands of a narcissist. You need to let it go. Why are you bringing this up? What they're really saying is, I haven't given you enough time to even process the last heinous incident of abuse, but you need to let it go already so I can move forward with exploiting you without facing any consequences for my behavior. In any type of abuse, it's common for an abuser to engage in a hot and cold cycle. That is part of the cycle of abuse, where they periodically throw in crumbs of affection to keep you hooked and renew hope for a return to the honeymoon phase. This is a manipulation tactic known as intermittent reinforcement. And that's what I was talking about in terms of experimental psych, which is, conditioning, classical conditioning, etc. And it's intermittent reinforcement, and that's how they keep you anxious and on your toes, so that you can be ready to do what they want, otherwise fearing that you won't get that crumb of love. And it's also known as trauma bonding, and that's to form a power differential. Okay, here's a nice one. You're the problem here, not me, which is the same as the others, but different language. And you should know all of their vocabulary anyway. What they're saying is, I'm the problem here, but I'll be damned if I let you know it. I'd rather subject you to personal attacks as you bend over backwards, trying to hit constantly moving goalposts, always coming up short of what I deem worthy. I can just sit back, relax, and continue to mistreat you the way I feel entitled to. Remember, the narcissist is never wrong. Another version is, I never said or did that. You're imagining things. What they're really saying is, making you question what I did or said allows me to cast doubt on your perceptions and memories of the abuse you've experienced. If I make you think that you're imagining things, you'll start to wonder if you're going crazy. I am gaslighting you. Many victims of chronic gaslighting struggle with the cognitive dissonance, which means the contradiction in thinking which occurs when their abuser tells them that they never did or said something. That is why continual denial, repetition, and minimization can be so effective in convincing gaslighting victims that they are indeed imagining things or suffering from memory loss, rather than the victim standing firm in their beliefs and experiences and saying, well, having a strong ego and saying, no, well, you're wrong. But sometimes when we're vulnerable, and I'll get to that, that's what happens. So far, we've got narcissists can become impatient or angry when they don't receive special treatment. They have significant interpersonal problems and easily feel slighted because their ego is so fragile. Because as we know, deep down inside, they suffer from shame and they really don't like themselves. And that they react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. That is the only way they can appear superior, is when someone else is pushed down. So I wanted to tell you that and remind you that people are on a continuum. We can revert sometimes when we're tired or it's just been a long week, and we can become irritable and angry and we just want special treatment. Sometimes we can have significant interpersonal problems because we're having a tough time at work or we have a family crisis. And sometimes we're not feeling really good about ourselves and we will project and take it out on somebody else. The difference is we will realize that. Our partner hopefully is supportive and they will try and comfort us, and we will be open to that comfort. And we will realize that when we've cooled down, we will say, you know what, I took it out on you, I'm really sorry. Because we have that self-awareness. So we don't want to take this literally for ourselves or for other people. These are characteristics that come out. Not always, it's not always all characteristics present themselves. It may be a few key characteristics. Narcissists also have difficulty regulating emotions and behavior. They have problems with impulse control. They will have knee-jerk reactions, and therefore they experience major problems dealing with stress and adapting to change. They will feel depressed and moody because they fall short of perfection. And they have secret feelings, like I said, of insecurity, shame, vulnerability, and humiliation, and do not expect them to come into contact with that in any significant and productive manner so that you can work with them. So, falling for a narcissist at the beginning. In the beginning, you're delighted to be in their presence. Why? Because it's easy to fall in love with a narcissist. Their charm, talent, and appearing success and charisma cast a spell, along with compliments, scintillating conversation, and even apparent interest in others. Enlivened by their energy, people gravitate towards them. But a little later on in the relationship, you become tense and drained from unpredictable tantrums, attacks, and unjustified indignation at imaginary slights. You begin to doubt yourself, worry what he or she will think, and become as preoccupied with the narcissist as they are with themselves. After a while, you start to lose self-confidence. Your self-esteem may have been intact, but your partner finds you coming up short and doesn't fail to point it out. Talking about your disappointment or hurt gets turned into your fault and another opportunity to put you down. Now, another list that I took some things from is again by Shahida Arabi, 12 of the most common lies sociopaths and narcissists tell, translated into truth. And I call this lies and grooming. This is going back to the beginning, to the first few dates. And I didn't include all 12. I picked out the most salient points because some of the other lies we've heard and we can suss them out. And I thought these would be the most significant. I would never lie to you. And of course, that means I'm lying as I say this. You do know that an authentic truth teller wouldn't have to convince you, right? The reason I constantly have to tell you I would never lie to you is because I know you will eventually find the discrepancies between what I say and what I do. So you may say to yourself, all these things you're showing us, I already have my antenna out. And my antenna's up, and I know that I would never fall for that. Please, I would never lie to you. Come on. But there's something, excuse the saw, they're working outside. As I said, the thing is, the key to all of this is said in the right manner and in the right environment. It's all believable. And I'm going to get back to that. They're talking, because we always trade stories about where we are in our marital status, whatever. And they're talking about their past. They say, well, he or she was obsessed with me. And what they're really saying is my past victims discovered my infidelity, my falsehoods, and even gained a momentary glance behind the mask. They called me out, even tried to expose me. Don't be surprised if they reach out to warn you, but by the time they do, you'll be convinced they're crazy and obsessed with me. So they could say they're just jealous of what we have, and it, obviously it couldn't have anything to do with the pain that they inflicted upon them. It's crazy how much we have in common. And what they're really saying is it's not crazy at all. It's perfectly calculated. I've studied you and I'm mirroring you, just like I've done with all of my other victims. I know your deepest wounds and desires because upon first meeting, I poked and prodded to uncover your strengths, weaknesses, and everything you're missing from your life. Now I'll morph into what you have always wanted in a partner. At least for now, until I get what I want. And then they will take the mask off from time to time, and soon you won't be able to recognize the person you first fell in love with. They might say, my ex was so dishonest and toxic. So let me take a break here. It may be true. All of this may be true, but what we're doing is putting ourselves in the middle of the narcissist's brain as much as we can, and so that you can see what's happening, what their thought process is. And what they're saying is, I was, of course, the toxic and dishonest one, but you won't figure that out until it's too late. I had to discard my previous partners because they found out I had betrayed them. They had seen behind the mask and were no longer willing to forget my crimes. So now they have to do damage control by convincing you that there's someone that you should take pity and take care of, someone who's been hurt by others in the past. They want you to feel sorry for them and nurse them back to emotional health. And when the truth is, they would prefer to be the one inflicting the pain. They will morph into anything that your vulnerabilities want. They will morph into anything. So we need to forget rescuing, helping, nursing, forget Florence Nightingale, and you're not the fire department, and they should have their act together. If anyone wants you to take care of them, let's hope it's a family member or a friend that you love, or if you have children, your child, not a partner. I used to be a player, but now I'm a changed man or woman. Now I want a meaningful relationship. What they're really thinking is, are you buying this bullshit? I hope so, because I'd like to sleep with you soon and make you think that we may one day be in a relationship. And that would be the first step into getting into your pants. Now, you may say to yourself, oh, well, this is easy. I'm not going to buy that. But let me tell you that said in the right context and in the right way and in the right environment, anything can be believable. And if you are thinking, well, I'll just be on my guard, you're not really going to be. You may as well not go out, because part of meeting somebody and developing a significant relationship is putting yourself out there and being yourself. Now, the second part to this is, I used to be a player, but now I'm a changed man or woman. Now I want a meaningful relationship, part 2. What they're thinking is, I'll fake some shame to go along with my reformed image. I am so deeply remorseful for all those I've hurt in the past, and I've really learned my lesson. Not, the truth is, I'll never change. And that is really the essence. I will fake. They will fake. And I will never change. I think this is the last lie that I focused on. I'm truly sorry. I really am. This is not who I am. That could be after an outburst of anger or whatever. And what they're really thinking and what they are really saying is, this is exactly who I am. And my behavioral patterns should have tipped you off by now. I hope you're buying it, though, because if you let me back into your life again, you're in for one hell of a ride. Why it's hard to lead a narcissist. It becomes addictive. The partner gets a high out of obtaining even small amounts, like we talked about, of the love bombing from before. All that attention, all that adoration, that admiration, which was, let me remind you, delivered in the smooth as silk manner. It's no different than an addiction to a drug. The first trip is the best, and everyone after that fails by comparison. Yet the person is so hooked, so they keep trying over and over. The partner becomes unable to see their own fall down this downward spiral. Initial angry outbursts. In the beginning, when the narcissist explodes, it seems so out of character, right? Because you were love bombed, because they showed their best. They put their best, and I mean extremely best, foot forward. So the partner easily accepts the narcissistic explanation of blame shifting as an excuse for their behavior, because the partner desperately wants things to return back to the initial encounter. So they start without realizing to mold themselves into whatever the narcissist says that they need. Now, let me tell you something. If somebody that you're on a date with drinks excessively, and they say, I'm so sorry, I was just so nervous, you might say to yourself, well, no, that's, I know I get nervous too. And sometimes I like tonight I had 3 instead of 2 drinks. So, but you see, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. And they've used it hundreds of times before. If somebody is clumsy during a date and they knocked over their wine or something like that, that can be excused. It's the difference between having your mind twisted and your behavior molded, and being yourself. You're addicted to the mask. Even when times get bad, the addiction to the mask of the narcissist is so strong now, after all of the reinforcement, the fear that life can never be as good without the mask of the narcissist traps the partner into staying. But this is done in a progressively slow manner. Why? Usually because the partner or you are vulnerable. They caught you at a vulnerable time, or either they sussed out your vulnerabilities that you do not have a handle on. The inability to detach. Trauma bonding, which is what we talked about, is a bond that develops when 2 people undergo intense, risky emotional experiences together. In the context of an abusive relationship, this bond is strengthened due to the heightened intimacy and danger. The relationship now decides the partner's level of self-esteem, self-worth, and emotional health. Remember, we all have some narcissism in us. We all get depressed sometimes. We all get anxious. Remember, pointing out to a narcissist that they are less than what they think will be treated like a betrayal, and you will pay. They are some of the most vengeful people that you will ever meet. If you are vulnerable in any way, they will sniff it out. Count on it. And that's why I've said in other webinars, you need to take responsibility for these encounters by dating yourself first. If that means reading a couple of books, I know Gail Saltz has a book about getting to know yourself, and or going to therapy, or both, or taking some time to just go on a weekend staycation, as they say, and think about a few things. You need to get to know yourself. You need to know your boundaries. You need to keep those boundaries. Otherwise, I promise you, they will sniff it out. And let me tell you that sitting across, because I've worked with the severely mentally ill, and sitting across any one of the personality disorders, be it the narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial, or sociopath, antisocial personality disorder, it is very stunning to see how charming they are. And I have here the National Domestic Violence Hotline, just in case. It's 1-800-799-7233. Finally, and I'm saying this with love, stop focusing on what you've read. Stop thinking to yourself that you have read all of the articles on Psych Central or Psychology Today or books about narcissists, and that, you know, you are set, you're good. You need to focus on the red flags. And the only way you're going to know that is, oddly enough, to know yourself and uphold your boundaries, uphold what you want in the long run. Like I've said in other webinars, put up a picture of the guy or gal that you want to be with. Put right beside it, you know, the qualities, and someplace you can see it, or glance at it every day so that it gets into your mind. And do not settle for less. No matter how sad you are, no matter if you just took, you know, you caught a few scenes of Love Actually, or any other movie that moves you and you feel sad and alone or lonely. You need to know yourself, because that is truly the only way that you are going to recognize when your boundaries have been violated. I hope you understand that. The other thing that I say with humility is, stop thinking you can fix, treat, or change someone like this. It's interesting to read about them. It's interesting to try and quarterback, you know, Monday morning quarterback, diagnose somebody with what you've read, but you can't. You're not qualified. I'm qualified to do that. And I'm saying this to let you off the hook, because it is not your responsibility to fix, treat, or change. And in this case, treat. You cannot treat them. I can treat them if they decide to stay in therapy, or if they decide to, you know, commit to change. Most likely, they will not. Change is too disruptive for them. Treating them, as we talked about, is too dangerous for their ego. Yes, there are cases of narcissists going into therapy and changing some, but this is really a personality disorder, meaning that it is ingrained already, and they have practiced behaviors, and they only know one way to act, and they will revert to form, and you can't fix them. I know you may think to yourself, well, she doesn't know me. I had a narcissistic brother. Well, that may give you a firsthand experience with narcissists. However, let me break this down for you. You're on a date. You have fixed yourself up. You have fixed your hair, put on some very cool clothes. You look really good. You're excited because you had some great conversations, but you're going to be cautious. And you go into the date, the meeting, and you're going to smile, and you're going to be inviting, and they're going to be inviting. You're going to be in an environment, with or without alcohol, that will relax you, and that will put you in the mood to listen, and if somebody says, oh, excuse me, I'm rambling. No, it's quite all right. I want to get to know you. Everything said in the right context and the right environment can get to you. As I said, I have sat across sociopaths who have murdered. I have sat across narcissists. And let me tell you, if I wasn't on my game, I found myself becoming enchanted with them. They are so charming, and they are so good at it. You will not know. You just won't know. You won't know until your gut tells you. And the only way your gut is going to tell you is if you know yourself well. It's not because you listened to this webinar. It's not because you read all of so-and-so's books. It's not because of anything else. It's not because you took a course in narcissism. I promise you, I promise you, it's not that. It all starts in the mind, your mind, not his or hers. Your mind has to be in order. You have to have your act together emotionally so that you can avoid and recognize at the earliest possible convenience who you're dealing with. Because as my mother said, whatever they present to you, imagine if this is what you know, she would say, imagine what you don't know. After I prepared this presentation, I went to Netflix and I saw this, this show about this documentary about the serial predator. And I always like to look at that because, well, that's part of my specialty. So I watched this and I thought it was very funny that it sort of followed the slides. So I recommend that you watch this. It's very captivating. It will put into yet another context what we've talked about today. And know that I repeated a lot of things because I wanted, and I repeated them in different manners, in different ways, and different contexts, so that it would be somewhat ingrained in your brain what you need to do, because it's really up to you. As the saying goes, you can't control anybody else. The only person you can control is yourself and what you allow into your personal psychological, emotional space. These are the references which I know you can look at later on and read, but you're not going to be realistically, and I encourage you to read them, but you're not going to realistically be able to go in with a list in your head or in your hand of the 4 ways, the 5 signs, the 10 ways, the 10 games. You can educate yourself, but you've really got to know yourself. Here's some more that I used. They're very good. And if you want to work with me, you can reach me at couchissues@gmail.com. And I think that's it. Yes. Okay, Gabe.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and pop up the questions. We'll see what we have. You can also type them in right now, but now is the time. All right, I'm pulling them up. All right, we don't have any questions as of right now, so we'll give it a minute and just make sure that nobody has anything. Oh, here's one that popped in right now. Often when referring to narcissists, you said him. Do you believe that males are more often narcissistic than females?
Men and women can be narcissists. However, research has shown that it's mostly men. Just like serial killers are mostly men.
Really?
There are women serial killers, but it's mostly men.
Fair enough. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we'll give it another moment to see if any other questions pop in. Oh, here's one. Other than your email address, do you have a website?
I am in the process of getting one because I'm in the process of transferring back to the United States. So if you want to email me any questions, I'd be happy to do that, to answer them. And I should have it up this month. I should have it up this month.
Wonderful. Right after they said website, right underneath they also wrote social media. I don't know if you have any social media.
You know what? I'm not. I am on Instagram, but not professionally. I am on Twitter, but not professionally. Facebook, I'm not too convinced about having a page there, but definitely I should have my website up this month.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, we got a couple more that popped in. Why are personality disorders difficult to treat?
Because they are complex. It's not just that narcissists have grandiose thoughts about themselves or are in need of adoration. They also have anger issues. They also have depression. So there are various components to each personality disorder. So antisocial personality disorder has a component of narcissism. They of course have anger issues. They are devoid of actually any true emotion. They cannot even feign true emotion. They will mimic. And the narcissist, on the other hand, will come across as more empathic than the antisocial personality disorder, but it's just there are various components that go along with that. And most other components, like I said, are depression and anger.
Wonderful, thank you so much. The next question is, does a continuum refer to degree of symptom severity or number quantity of symptoms?
Oh, excellent question, and I'm happy to clarify. It means degree. We all have some narcissistic tendencies. We all feel that we're special. We all feel sometimes that we are the man or the woman. You know, we've got, oh, wow, do I look awesome or what? And you saunter into that gathering or presentation and you're thinking, I am great. But it doesn't stay with you. That is not what you lean on in order to survive in life. You have the capacity to be humbled. You are open to learning. You are open to being corrected or challenged. And the narcissist isn't. And they rely on admiration and keeping up the mask. They can't let go of the mask. Too dangerous for them and too much for their fragile ego. But we all, like in depression, we've all felt sad. We've all felt sad for a long time. A pet dies, a significant other dies, family member, friend pass away, are sick, and you might be preoccupied for a while. But then you sort of come out of it as the situation improves, or as time passes, or as you receive support from others. The problem comes when it interferes with your daily activities. Or if for the narcissist, the true narcissist, it's to such an extreme that they will leak anger because a person can't keep up a facade for a long time. If you're seeing them on a regular basis, I would give it about a month, and they'll leak anger. They might turn around and snap. They might say, well, now, didn't you see your behavior too, sweetheart? You know how much I love you. And so it will be done in such a smooth way. But if you get that feeling of, that this is not, this was condescending, you call that person out on it. And if they don't like it, then you know that you might be dealing with a narcissist, and couple it with other behaviors that maybe you've let go. But yes, it's on a continuum of severity. Usually we fall somewhere in the middle.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got a couple of more questions here. Can narcissistic personality disorder co-occur with bipolar disorder?
There can be narcissistic tendencies. It depends upon what is predominant. If the bipolar is, I would say that would be predominant, and there might be tendencies, narcissistic tendencies. You might have tendencies of obsessive compulsive disorder when a bipolar person is, manic, and they want everything in order, and everything has to, okay, we're going to do this, and this is going to happen, and so on. But there could be tendencies of narcissism when they're manic. I'm the best, I can do anything, I can, let's do it, let's go and try out this risky behavior. Nothing's gonna, without any thought to the consequences. But that's not narcissism. It's a tendency.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And here is our last question. How does narcissism manipulate sexual intimacy?
Demanding sex, but it has to be in conjunction with other behaviors. You cannot extrapolate one aspect and say, okay, this person is behaving XYZ way when we have sex, so they're narcissistic. It doesn't work that way. It's the whole package. It's, from the time they meet you to the incidents of showing you their Jekyll and Hyde faces, getting a glimpse behind the mask. They explode. They make you think that your complaints are not relevant. They make you feel that it's your fault. They start making you doubt your own sanity, and that's gaslighting. They are very selfish. They don't take into account that you're sick or that you are incapacitated. You can't, come to their aid. It's a complete and total disregard to you, for you, and a complete attention to them. But you see, like I said, it doesn't work like in the movies or on television. It is done very slowly and smoothly. So the best way is to look back on all behavior, not only in the bedroom, but behavior during dinner, during the daily routine. It has to be a whole picture. That's why when I was describing narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis, it says that it has to be 5 of the 9 behaviors, because it has to be a makeup of their persona. Their persona has to communicate narcissistic personality disorder. The best way is not to, I'm going to speculate a little bit about your question. The best way in general to avoid unpleasant relationships is to see how you feel. If you do not like the way you're treated sexually, or you're being hurt, well, then this isn't for you. This relationship isn't for you. If you feel demeaned, if you feel humiliated, if you feel like your needs aren't being met, this might not be a match for you. It doesn't matter whether they're narcissistic or schizophrenic, bipolar, general, clinically depressed. It doesn't matter. It's how you feel, and if they are violating your boundaries, or if they are making you feel less than a person with integrity and dignity, if it's affecting your dignity and your sensibilities, then no, it's not for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, we are out of questions. Nancy, thank you. And of course, to
Thank
our
you.
audience and everybody watching, thank you as well.
Thank you to everyone.
This concludes this month's presentation of the Psych Central webinar series. Nancy, do you have any final words?
No, thank you everybody for tuning in. And, I certainly wish you all well. And I'm glad that you, were here to listen to this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we will see everybody next month.